Okay.
Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We sure are.
And today we are very fortunate. We have Anne Aleckson with us.
Hi.
Anne is driven by her mission to create a more peaceful world by empowering everyone to find inner peace, personal power, and purpose. As a modern mystic and the elite channel for all that is, Anne gives a voice to the power within, creating transformation through the vibrational frequency of the spoken and written word. Anne guides change makers to develop unfuckable inner peace, increase their personal power, and fulfill their purpose to become and then lead the change they came to see in the world through her own unique transformational methodology. Oh my goodness. Creating a transformation at the spiritual, emotional, physical, and mindset levels. And she is the author of the recently released best-selling book, Mind Your Own Vibration, Be Unfuckwithable. So welcome, Anne. It's very exciting to have you on here. I love that.
It's absolutely wonderful to be here. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Barb. And I really must do something about that word, because the last thing we want to say is be unfuckable, right? And it seems to me that everyone stumbles over that word. So I'll have to find another way to express it.
No, that's fine.
But I love that. I love that when I read it, I don't have that problem with just saying it.
I think it says you're free about what you're saying. That's what it tells me by you saying that. It tells me you're free about how you feel, about what you're trying to tell them in the book. And that's great.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And that's actually what I mean by it too, is that you are free. You don't get triggered by anything that someone around you does or that's happening in the world. You just stay in your steady, peaceful place. So it's absolutely, it means both of those things.
Yeah, I love that. So can you tell us about little bit about your journey to getting there and coming up with these concepts and how you're sharing them with the world?
Sure, absolutely. So about 15 years ago now, I was in corporate, right? In the mining industry and finance. And I had no idea about this whole esoteric spiritual thing that was going on in the world. The most thing I'd ever had done was one time I had my palm read at the markets on a Sunday one day, and that was the weirdest spiritual thing I'd ever done. And I had, I'd been in a bad marriage. I had a small child. I also had a teenager at the time, and I was just really unhappy. And I thought, well, I didn't think, someone said to me, you get to choose to be happy, Anne. And I was like, so angry at that person, because if I got to choose it, why wouldn't I have chosen it? Why was I living in such bloody misery, right? So I made it my mission at that time to find out how to be happy. And every single guru, because I started looking for gurus then, I started thinking, it was all the spiritual people who kind of talked about being happy at the time. And the self-development world was opening up to this thing called happiness, and there were books being written. I read everything. I went to the happiness conference with the Dalai Lama in Sydney one year, and every single happiness teacher said the same thing. One thing was always the same. There was always one common denominator: meditate. And I couldn't. I did figure it out eventually, and I sat to meditate. And every single time I sat to meditate, after about 10 minutes, I heard a voice that was kind of inside of me, but also outside of me, speak. And it said exactly the same thing every time for months. We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. So that's why I call what speaks through me all that is, because even though back in those days, everyone was bombarding me with this question, yeah, but who are they? All that is. Yeah, but what's their name? All that is. So I found myself in this spiritual world that surprisingly had so many rules and regulations around what spirituality looked like, which surprised the heck out of me.
Right.
I thought I was walking into a bit of freedom where I could create my own reality and these sorts of things. But there were so many rules and regulations, and I stumbled for a long time because I had this spiritual awakening where in just a moment in time, they started speaking through me, and I downloaded this whole set of teachings that I call the teachings of all that is. And it's taken me literally this long. I finally wrote the book in September this year, 2023, which is just the teachings and then my experience of having to become the embodiment of the teachings. That's my purpose here, is to embody them, to become the energy of inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as I'm sure you beautiful ladies know, that's how we change the world. We first change ourselves, and then we can go out and change the world through our frequency, not necessarily what we're either saying or sharing with people or teaching or anything like that, but actually with our frequency. Mm-hmm. So that's really what happened. And I spent 10 years, I was told at the beginning that I would spend the next 10 years in apprenticeship with all that is, learning these things, pulling them apart, making them work, make them, it's really important for me, I'm a Virgo, it's really important for me that they were very practical. So that became my focus for 10 years. Yeah, and it's been an interesting time, and now I've come out at the end of it. I've written the book. The book wrote itself through me in a week because I'd been working with and embodying the teachings for so long. So it was just a matter of sharing how I did that to help others to hopefully do that as well, in their own way, because I have no rules and regulations. I think we're all here to do what we're all here to do uniquely, with our own frequency, and every single one of us holds it differently, but all of us have a part to play in changing the world. And so the sort of people that I like to work with and I like to share these teachings with are people who are part of that movement of wanting to change the world in some way, towards peace, because that's my end goal, world peace through inner peace, one person at a time.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing, because I think it does start with us as a one person to become then that collective and share that, right? And I always try to leave my house shining my light as bright as I can, because you don't know who's going to need that light. And Mom does the same thing. She's always smiling at people all over the place. And I remember growing up and thinking, why does she smile and talk to everybody? Like, that's so annoying.
She did. Mom, it's embarrassing.
And now I am her. Because I do the same, right? Because I didn't realize then to now of she was going out and shining her light and giving that peace to people, and right? So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've been talking a lot in the last day even about how we grew up with such strict rules, right? How we've surpassed that, or we're doing a good job of trying to surpass it, I guess, to bring us into that other end where we don't have those same rules. I mentioned it because you mentioned it, right? About all the rules that hold us down. And so with the spirituality, what I'm finding anyways is teaching us how to rebel a little bit and be our own people, and focus on what is a good intention for us that we want to share out there,
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I still think we've got a lot of work to do within the spiritual arena, because what I found was there was a lot of suppression of me back in the early, so this was like 15 years ago. Facebook was just starting. The very first things that happened to me as a channel, I didn't know who I was, what I was doing. I had to go and find other people who did this so that I could know that I wasn't losing my mind, because I literally thought I was losing my mind, as you do, right? But what I found was that, in contradiction to what all that was telling me about keeping my channel open and how to conduct myself and these sorts of things, contrary to that, the people the communities that I moved into in trying to find myself had all these rules about that and had no qualms in telling me how I was doing it wrong. And because I was so new to it, I lent into that, thinking, well, they know more than I. Of course, that's what you do, right? But as I came out of that over the years, it became a thing for me. I really want people to understand that if you learnt your craft in the 80s, for instance, there's a whole hell of a lot that's happened since then. And people today who are waking up, as I'm sure you know, I mean, there was a huge spiritual awakening in your country, particularly in 2020 when COVID happened. And the people who woke up then have moved far, far quicker than I did, because it's a more familiar place now and there's so many more of us talking about it.
Right.
As opposed to when I came out, I had to literally go and find people. And I worked with business coaches who said to me, who were also spiritual, who said to me, you can't channel for your clients. Oh no, don't put that on your website. Don't put on your website that you channel. And for me, I had been guided to just be completely open about it to everyone and everything.
Yeah.
Like blow my life up, essentially. I know you can do it more gentle, but for me, it was all about, I'm all in. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing now. I'm jumping straight in there. And surprisingly, I did have someone say to me the other day, which it made me feel really good about my journey. He said to me, you know, I've noticed something about you. When I looked at your website, everyone else I interview or talk to who is a channel, you don't know that they're a channel until you talk to them. Whereas with you, it's right there on your homepage. And I said, it always has been. Because, I mean, isn't that what we're here to do?
Absolutely.
So it didn't make sense to me. But I had, as I said, coaches who said to me, don't channel for your clients, don't do this. A couple of years later, they're doing the same, of course. They're channeling for their clients, right? So it was a super confusing, super interesting experience for me. But I got through. I've come to now, and I've got my book. It's published and it's out there. The teachings are out there, and I feel a lot freer now, because I can make some changes in my life to the way I've been living, because my focus has been on just embodying these teachings. I had some things that have happened to me that have shown me that I have got to the point where I've embodied it and that I'm essentially unfuckwithable, so nothing triggers me. And to prove that to me, I've been put through a bit of hell the past 12 months with, you know, the death of my mum, and then a month later the death of my son.
Oh no.
He was a grown man with his own children and family. Nonetheless, it's just both from cancer, unfortunately, I feel. But you know, I had taken some time to stay with mum and look after her as she was finishing her life, and my son had been working with cancer, living with cancer for 3 years. So, you know, and it all just ended in a month, literally 1 month after the other.
Wow.
So, and we're coming now into the time of all of that. So it's a little bit raw at the moment, but yeah, so this really, and a month later, that's when the book wanted to come through, because there's stuff in here in the book about our karmic ties that I would not have known about.
Right.
Without that.
Yeah. So
well, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Very sorry, yes.
I hate to put a damper on things, but
but you're right. Sometimes those raw experiences really do push us to do the things, and it's interesting that the book was born the way that it was from that, because I think that shows too that the universe has its own timing and is going to do exactly what it wants to do
And it was
when
waiting
it
for
wants
you.
to do it. And we have to be open to that thing. And you obviously were and said, okay, like this is, I'm dealing with all this rawness and
Yeah.
traumatic stuff, but I'm gonna push forward and do this and bring my message out to the world, which I think is really.
And the timing, I believe that spirit works with us on timing. When the timing comes available for us to do the things we need to do, it opens up those gates and we just have to follow it through. And because timing is of the minute, of the second, almost of when you think of it, and to follow it. So for you that you just kept moving on and didn't allow anything to stop you from where you're supposed to be.
Unfortunately, I found myself saying the other day, what's happened is it's created judgment of me by people in my family who think I should have behaved differently. You know what I mean? So whilst it was the best thing that I've done this year, it was also probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's created some judgment of me, which thank goodness I've done the inner work and it's not affecting me too badly. But I can't imagine myself a year ago dealing with that on top of everything else. So yes, I found myself saying it was the best thing that happened and it was the worst thing that happened. But the best thing's a little bit higher.
Yeah, and it's so hard, right? Because I always say that to Marie's and her granddaughter, and I will say to her, it's none of your business what people think of you and what, right? But when you're caught in the midst of it, that's not always an easy advice to take for yourself either, right?
Because people are always going to have an opinion, and they are, and it's up to you to sort of go, okay, yeah, that hurt a bit, but I'm gonna move on with this. Yeah, okay, you really know how to say things, woo, to people, and I guess the more you get used to that, the better you are. Sort of, you go, whoa, nasty, but oh well, I didn't say it. You said that,
Exactly. And I love it because the more judgment I get, the more it gives me an opportunity to clean up what's inside me that's actually creating that judgment.
Yeah.
So
and that's where you get the big fuck you as well.
Yes, well, yeah. Everyone's so sensitive because of the situation that we've all gone through together.
Right.
So it's a very much a tread lightly rough for now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I liked how you said that was like, I think these obstacles and these judgments and the stuff and to do our inner work, they're our biggest teachers, right? When you're butting heads with somebody, that's, I think, a bigger teacher than just floating through life so freely. And although that's what we all love.
Yeah, no, but it allows you to, right? So every single time, so I take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in my world. Even when people say, but that's not your responsibility, you didn't create that. Yes, I did, because if I'm seeing it, I created it to create something within myself that needs to be released or healed or whatever word you want to use for it. So, whatever's going on out there in the world, whether it's in my personal world or in the greater world, if I feel any certain way about it that creates sadness, anger, or fear, then that's my job to clean that up in me.
Yeah.
This is how we become the frequency of peace.
Right.
And that's how we create peace through our presence.
Right. And do you think that you do that through kind of surrendering it out? Because I'm hearing a lot about that. It's kind of coming forefront for me in a lot of different things I've been listening to is just about surrendering, right? Letting go, letting God kind of thing, and however you want to say that. But do you feel that way?
I absolutely do. I might express it slightly differently, but that's just words, right? But yes, so for me, every time you have something triggered inside you, breathing and becoming present with your own self and allowing those other non-physical aspects of you to serve you, because that's really what this is all about. You've got your physical self. The non-physical's here to help you become more matchy with their frequency so that you can raise your frequency so that you can walk the earth as what I call an enlightened change maker, so lighter. So for me, it is about becoming fully present with yourself, which is God, breathing air, which is God, and just allowing, and it really can be that quick, right? You get triggered, you sit, you breathe deeply, you allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, and it disappears. It might come up again later in another way, in a different situation with a different trigger, but every single time you release some part of it, I like to say that shadow that you've been holding in your physical auric field releases and leaves way for the light of your true being to fill that space.
Nicely said. Nicely said. Yeah.
That is very nicely said. And I think that's important for people to realize that, right? Like, we are living this in these human bodies, and we are going to have grief and frustration and resentment and all kinds of different reactions. And it's not so much about not living that way, but for me, it's about acknowledging that you are in grief or whatever is your moment, and then just letting that go to say, okay, I acknowledge that, and that's not who I am. That's just the feeling that I'm having right now.
Yeah.
This is my experience.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. And more often than not, caused by something that actually happened to me in my past that I forgot to breathe through, and that I decided meant something about me. And, because I wasn't breathing, all the emotion got just held within. So
true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we stagnate ourselves so much by not breathing through things, because I think if you even look at people when they have any kind of bad thing kind of happen to them, or anger, the first thing you do is hold your breath and clench yourself up. And then how can you receive that light in if we're doing that?
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly right.
So true.
I call them the trauma twins, right? So trauma for me is subjective.
Right.
And in every moment of trauma that you have from the day you're born up till today, every single moment of trauma that you have, and it could be big or little, as I said, subjective. In the moment of trauma, you stop breathing, you hold the emotion in, and you make the moment mean something about you. So you create an emotional block and a belief system, a belief about yourself. And that's what I call the trauma twins, right? So they're created in the moment of trauma, and they become the magnets that create your reality. And you keep repeating. I say to people all the time, if you're swapping out your boyfriend for another person, but it's still the same experience, you've got one of these magnets in here saying, I'm not worthy of a good experience, so let's clean that up.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? And, there was a moment of trauma where you made a decision that you weren't worthy of love or some such thing.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So many. And it's held in place by the emotion because you're not breathing. Babies breathe differently than grown-ups do, because they haven't yet had all of these traumas. So they haven't learned to stop breathing. Breath is life. That's absolutely true. And it can release you from all of your trauma if you allow yourself to just breathe and be present with whatever you feel in the moment.
So how would you encourage someone to figure out what that trauma is? What is, like, in the situation where you said where you're dating the same person over and over and over again, so how do you tap into yourself to understand where you got that trauma from?
Good question.
Thanks.
And that comes into exactly what we're talking about, right? So if you notice, oh gosh, why do I keep attracting the same beep all the time, right? Why do I keep attracting? I mean, they get better looking, but oh my gosh, they just behave exactly the same. Oh, who's the common denominator? Ooh, it's me. What is it within me that is inviting that energy into my world? How do they make me feel? So I'd sit down and I'd think for a moment, how do they make me feel? And I'd breathe, I'd start breathing, because the minute you start thinking about how do they make me feel, what am I feeling about this? You feel, I mean, I could feel it right now, right?
Fearful or whatever.
The sadness energy comes up.
Yeah.
I feel sad. Well, why do I feel sad? What's the belief about me? What's the belief about me that I've got that's attached to this feeling of sadness? And, you know, you can go back into your history and think about the things that have happened to you, or you can just say, it really can be as simple as just deciding, all these people that I have relationships with that leave me feeling this way, rejected or unlovable, they're a result of something that happened to me in the past. I'm going to sit and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to allow myself to feel the sadness. And usually the sadness will present a memory to you, or in some way you'll be shown, because this is what when I talk about the law of attraction a little differently than some people. For me, the law of attraction means that when you ask, it is given. What that means for me is that when you, as the human being, asks for help, for guidance, for support, for healing, every single aspect of you in the non-physical comes rushing towards you to help or to give you the answer. That's been my experience. And this is what I teach, or what I've been taught from all that is. And so if you lean into that, I mean, we can either work towards what we want, or we can allow ourselves to have what we want.
Yeah.
And I know which one feels much more comfortable to me.
Absolutely.
And isn't this where we're going with moving the world from that patriarchal masculine energy, not men, masculine energy, just to be clear. Isn't that where we're going with bringing together the masculine and the feminine, and living our lives from that, where it is about asking for what we want and then allowing ourselves to receive it?
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I feel like it's like the way that a lot of us live is like we're always chasing. We're chasing the dream. We're chasing the feeling. We're chasing whatever. And a lot of times we fill it up with something else because we're like, oh, well, if we just fill it up with this.
Yeah, something else to do. Right. Yeah.
Then we're not chasing anymore. We've made that. Where if we, like you said, we could just open up and lean into it. I feel like you can accept those things and you will be shown the directions and the paths of where you need to go.
Absolutely.
True. And I find sometimes too, when you do that, you talk to yourself out loud. You really do. I go, whoa, where'd that come from?
I actually live in a tiny little cottage on the top of a mountain. And so I'm very isolated because I've got a grown-up son. I've lost one son. I've got a grown-up son. I no longer have my mother. And while I have other families scattered throughout, I just found myself, as I was writing the book, I found myself needing to just isolate, which I've been doing, and I'm about to come out of it again. But yes, oh my gosh, do I talk to myself? And I talk to my son and I talk to my mum because they've never left me.
Yeah.
But yes, I talk to myself. If I'm having a moment where I'm trying to force myself to do something that I think I should be doing, as opposed to understanding that if I was supposed to be doing it, I'd be doing it. Because how life is supposed to be. Yes, I find myself having words with myself and talking to myself and all of these wonderful things. Maybe I am going slightly mad.
I think isolation is beautiful. I lived in the mountains for a while, or we both did actually. And there's something about that isolation that just I don't know, makes you breathe properly, makes you feel nature. It makes you live in the moment because you're not being that stressed person around vehicles and work and all the rest of it. It just gives you a real sense of belonging. And once you feel that once you feel what it's like to live with your own self.
Yes.
And do the own acceptance of your own self because you're only there by yourself. You learn how to broaden the antennae to say, it's okay how I feel about that.
Yep.
It's okay. And I don't have to ask permission for somebody of how I should feel with that. Right. And
absolutely. And I don't have to face other people's judgments. All I have to do is face my own judgment.
That's right. And it's beautiful.
So, and of course, facing your own judgment, doing that inner work means that anyone outside of you has no need to judge you anymore, because it's always and only a reflection of your own judgment of self.
Right.
Or hatred of self, or whatever of self.
But if they don't agree with you, they'll also leave. They won't stick around for your energy either, right? They're like,
out of the way. Yes, absolutely. And that's absolutely true as well.
Yes.
You know, so it can be a little isolating when you're doing all your inner work, and you know, there's a lot of us doing it, but we're all separate in different places, and we can find each other from time to time and these sorts of things, but until you know, give us a couple more years with more people waking up in every moment and in every day and recognizing these sorts of things, and only because brave people like you have podcasts and people like me write books and these sorts of things, you know. And it's the only way to change the world is to talk about what you know to be true, even if people laugh at you because of it.
Yeah,
I agree with you. And it's so funny because when we did start the podcast, it was kind of like well, we got things to say. Let's try this out, right? And then the journey in the last 2 years has been so incredible because we meet incredible people like you, and we're getting that message out. And, you know, at one point it was really funny because I said to my counselor, I don't really know what my purpose is and I feel stuck. And then we talked through it and, you know, did some tapping on it and did some different stuff. And then it was like, oh, wait. Oh, I am living my purpose. It just isn't coming in the package like I was expecting it to come.
Yeah.
So that was a great realization of what this actually gave to us as a bond between us as a mother and daughter, but also to be able to share wisdom, our wisdom and other people's wisdom to people, to bring that enlightenment and that vibration in the world higher, because we need that right now.
Well, we sure do. And it's also to show people that we can all be different. We can still be different. You know, we can still have our own ways of believing things. It doesn't mean that we don't belong in the spiritual world because we have that little part of us that is different. But that's the part that makes us special too, because we then say to other people, yeah, but you can think of it that way. Or something like that, where people can go, really? You know, like how many times in your lifetime have you gone, really? You know, that aha moment sort of sticks us, and we go, wow, I didn't know I could do that too. You know,
exactly.
Or believe
and
that.
that is why I never hesitated from day one to be completely open and honest that, you know, this weird thing was happening to me, and sometimes when I get my own consciousness out of the way, another consciousness speaks through me and shares ridiculous things that I have no idea about back then, of course, you know. So, and of course I was around people who were all talking about being authentic. And still today, around people who talk about being authentic, but they're hiding their gifts because they don't want to be seen as weird. I mean, God, weird's the best thing to be. We're all weird.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I respect that you have been authentic right from day one, because it's for me, embrace that weirdness, choose joy, you know, feel that light, because in my mind's eye, we're all kind of these little energy balls. We're just encased in these
Bodies
human bodies, so we can recognize each other on a different
level.
And,
Yeah.
but really, I think the more that you get in tune with it, you realize that this body is just a hologram, really, in my opinion. But don't get me go down that rabbit hole.
Another one.
I like to say that we're not a soul within a body. We're actually a body within the one soul.
Yeah, exactly.
All these little, it's like if you look into your body and you see all your cells, all the humans on the planet are the cells of this one soul.
Yeah.
And we've got to start kind of remembering that and living like that, recognizing that even though we're having this conversation, we're actually one.
We're one mind, one body. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the nice part. That's because we are sharing, right? And that's the whole purpose of this is we want to share the enlightenment so that other people feel it and can generate around it too. Yeah.
And I don't know why I want to say something from Catholic religious. That was my upbringing, but of course it wasn't strict or anything. But oftentimes I'm reminded of things that Jesus said or that were in the Bible and things like this. And there's that, and I always get them wrong, so I'm paraphrasing. I was just about to say, because I don't remember what I said back then. I know you'll get it.
Awesome.
Something to do with where one or more are gathered. Right? Yeah. So when we're gathered like this and we're having these conversations, it takes the conversation higher. It takes it into realms that me sitting here by myself having a conversation wouldn't take it into. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of being these human beings who have thinking minds and who have the ability to share a conversation. It's all well and good that, yes, we're all one, so therefore everything that I'm creating is just being reflected back to me from what's inside me, from my stuff that's going on. It's all well and good to have that as a belief and a concept, but there's so much joy in being human. Mm-hmm. To have these bodies that create pleasure and create life as well.
Yes.
Yes. Truth. It is a blessing.
It is a blessing.
It really is.
We're lucky. We're very fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. I love that statement too. And you hear a lot of people say that, right? Where one or more is gathered, then we are in prayer. We are in however you want to choose your divinity, I guess, at that point, we are there and experiencing that. And I mean, I have always loved that concept of religion, not the institution, but just religion, and that there is a higher being than me, and that it, everybody's kind of as one. And I've always really loved that, even as a small child. So yeah, it's interesting that it's drove me along this path. It also helped that my mother was quite a good influence that way.
Thank you. I believed in free love and free will and free spirit and all that other stuff. It was I just didn't think that life was supposed to hold us back. Life was supposed to move us on to other plateaus that were more exciting and experiencing and happy. And like you see so much. When I was younger, I saw so much gloom and doom sort of thing, and people angry with each other and everything else. And it's like, but why? That's such a waste of time. And oh my God, and the feelings I have because of what they're feeling. Oh my God, this is just not right. You feel like crying and all this other stuff. So to me, it was like, no, life is worth more than that. It just is, and so. Yeah, yes, I was a free will kind of girl.
I think that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, bring it on.
You know, we one of the teachings of all that is that life is supposed to be easy, and you know, it's not supposed to be so hard. It really is not supposed to be so hard. We've made it hard because we need to complicate things. Up until recently, we've needed to complicate things to make them mean more to us, and all of these sorts of things. Very much masculine energy, of course, which we're coming out of.
Right.
So, you know, and again, another teaching is that nothing's gone wrong up to this point, and that we can't get it wrong.
Right.
I try to live by that. If you can't get it wrong, then any moment that you are thinking that there's something that you should have done that you didn't do is, for me, an act of what we call unself-love. And the highest frequency and the thing that will usher us into the new age is unconditional love for self and others. Because in oneness, if you have unconditional self-love, then you also have unconditional love for others. And that's where we need to go. That's how we get to the next level of humanity. I call Homo Luminous, a being of light walking in human form on purpose, right?
Yep.
I believe that's where we're going. I believe that's our evolution. And I hope that I model that. I try as hard as I can to model that. That's my goal in life. And I have little checks against myself all the time. Did I act that way? Did I? And if not, you know, what can I do better next time?
Yeah.
So yeah, beautiful.
We always have ourselves in check, or a lot of us have ourselves in check, because we want to be the best of us we can be, right? And particularly when we're out there with other people too, still try to be the best we could be, because there's always going to be someone that is going to prove us not to be right.
That's exactly right.
Influence in some way, other way down the road, sort of thing. So yeah, we have to be the best we can be.
Yeah, I think that self-reflection is important, because I think that does give us those checks and balances. It's the kind of the yin yang, the masculine, the feminine. It's all of that, right? It's like we're trying to show up authentically and be the best we can be, but we do have to self-reflect and say, did I show up that way? And if I didn't, why didn't I? And what do I need to work through so that next time I can show up as a better person or a more enlightened person? That's kind of what I
find myself going, whoa, what was that about? A lot. I find that a lot when something happens in front of me, and I sit back after and go, whoa, why did I have to experience that? Right. And later, I'll have to think about that later.
No, I agree with you. And you know, one of the most common things that pretty much every adult does is drive, right? So we have so many moments to have someone cut us off, or to almost get us in an accident, and all of these sorts of things. And I love noticing how I react to that. And then I love noticing how I quickly pivot because I've trained myself so well to quickly pivot into forgiveness of that person for, you know, for nearly causing me to have an accident, or for cutting me off, or for being angry at me, or whatever it is. And I say forgiveness, but there's also other things. It depends on the situation. But just find myself pivoting and recognizing that, oh, you know, there but for the grace of God go I, as they say. You know, I'm sure I've done that to someone too. So we're all just one being, having these moments of distracting each other into our darker sides.
Yes.
And I don't mean darker as in evil, I just mean into our lesser selves, so that we can start to recognize that and start to consciously choose the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we influence others, and how we also change the world. Because again, the world's a reflection of me, of what's inside me. I have to change what's in me first before I can stand there and say, you know what, the world needs to have peace. First of all, I've got to have peace.
Right.
I know that when I have peace, it's a ripple effect. Everyone around me, when they're in my energy, are feeling more peaceful.
right?
Yeah,
That's true.
That is right.
You made me feel peaceful. It's true. I mean, you have a very, very comedic way about you. You're funny too. You're a delight. You are. And so very easy to communicate with. But thank you for all that you were teaching, because all the people that are listening to this are going to go, is it really that easy?
It really is.
Yeah, and I love how you deliver your messages too, like kind of on what you said, with the laughter and that nice, bubbly personality, because I think laughter is so important in our world, and it is such a communication, and is such a, like, it's almost like a love language of sorts, because you're binding together in the joy of laughter and sending. I think that just creates such a better vibration, and you've given us that by giving your messages with that flair, which is awesome.
Yeah, it is very.
Look, I'm so appreciative of what you've just said, because I'm going to tell you something and you're going to be shocked. When I was growing up, I was so quiet that as a teenager, sitting in a coffee shop with all my teenage friends, they used to laugh at me. They used to say things like, in that very sarcastic way, "Oh, I wish you'd stop talking, Anne, you talk too much," because I was so quiet, so shy, so introverted, so unsure of myself. And that's the key, right? I was I didn't know who I was. I was so scared of who I was that I wouldn't voice it. And this is why I ended up in a marriage that I was unhappy in a life that I knew there was something beyond that it wasn't supposed to be like this. But I had to, obviously, I now understand why I was like that through my growing up. I was experiencing life. I was experiencing what I needed to experience in order to have this moment of awakening and to remember.
That's right.
Got
away from that
one. I've been asleep all this time, and now I'm finally awake. And with that came, I'm still introverted, obviously. I live on the top of a mountain by myself. But I love to have a conversation. I can easily talk about what I believe. I have that self-consciousness has gone, because I've realized that how could you be self-conscious when you are consciousness manifest, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just me. I want to be very clear. This is all of us.
Absolutely, 100%. Because when I was young, I too was very introverted, very shy, very quiet. And really, if you would have said back then, this is what you're going to be doing, and you're going to be, but I get excited when I'm talking about this stuff that I just inevitably know and want to share with people. I get excited. Mom gets excited. So to come out and do this, I remember she was always, kind of happy in the life of the party, and I was like, how is she so brave? I'm stuck back here being like, oh Lord, don't talk to me. And now it's great, because I have this side of me that can be out there and do podcasts and things like that. But I also have my introverted side, where when I go camping, it's like, just leave me alone in peace in the forest and I'm good.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting, isn't it? There's so many of us who have, I remember many years ago, before I had my awakening, I was in a multi-level marketing company, and I was given the opportunity to do a little thing on stage, and I was terrified. And my knees would shake. I mean, I literally would stand on, my knees would be shaking, and I would get red from the neck up. It was horrifying to me. It got to the point where I had to take beta blockers at one point just to be able to get on stage. And now I can't get on enough stages. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I will talk a podcast person's ear off if I can, if they give me the time. Everyone who knew me I have 5 brothers and sisters, and all but one of them are loud, extroverted people, as was my father.
Wow.
So I was just this weird person who didn't stand up for herself and didn't voice what she thought in amongst all of the noise that was going on. So it's surprising to people who meet me, who grew up with me, are like, what? You've actually got a voice.
Right? That's awesome. I love that.
It is. It's true. I mean, I love being away from everybody, no people around. I love it. If I could live in the country with animals and things like that, oh boy, I would be in my element. I really would. Being around people, I was forced to do that in order to raise my kids on my own and things like that. So oftentimes that ran with fear of failure, fear of not being able to do it, right? So you force yourself into another commodity of your own self. And I call it that way because we got these all stacked up inside of us, right? So we have a little commodity we bring out in ourselves and show other people in order to exist.
Yeah.
We do that. We can do it very successfully when we're put in that situation that we need to be in there. Because when I got on stage the first time, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I passed out the altar when I was getting married. I mean, that should have been my first sign. So, I mean, yeah, I think that you find yourself as we walk through this world, we find ourselves, and what gives us the most contentment, peace of mind, peace of everything, and that's what we want to share. Like you, we want to share like so what? Somebody pissed you off this morning. You know what? They're gone now. Live in the bliss of the moment, right?
Yeah,
and try to stay there.
Yeah.
You can.
Absolutely live in the moment. And what I love, and I feel I need to make this clear as well for anybody that's listening. I often get pushback from people who, when I talk to them about this utopia that I believe we're going, I actually had an experience where I was taken into the future and I saw the world in peace, and I was shown, and this is part of my mission and all that. When I came back, I had that mission statement, which I'd never heard before, came back with me. World peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me. I saw the world in peace. I know what it's going to take. And when I share things like that, you get a lot of pushback from people, because in a utopian world where everyone's needs are taken care of, oh yeah, but what about... Oh, yeah, but what about, I earn my money. I'm not going to share it with anyone. Well, I'm not even talking about that, but this is always where we go to, right? What I want to say there is that where we're talking from, the three of us, and many other people as well, is from a place where we have done our inner work enough that we have inherent, I call them soul goals, but you could call them morals or values or whatever you want to. We have come back to this place of oneness where we understand that we are one. There's no one outside of me. Therefore, anytime I don't give to the homeless, when I feel the call to do so, I'm rejecting myself. And so that's how we can create that world, by understanding that there but for the grace of God go I. I'm saying it again, right? I don't think I've said that for like 10 years. But some reason it's coming up today. So therefore, but for the grace of God go I. And so we come into a place where we understand that everyone that presents in front of me that looks like they need help from me is a reflection of something that's happening inside me. And self-love would have me allow myself to have that thing. So therefore, the human self needs to give that thing. So what I'm saying is that we're not coming at this place of oneness from a separation,
Right.
a place of I earn my money, so I get to keep it. And I'm using money because it's such a good example, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the response you get when you talk about things like a worldwide income, where every being, just because they're a human being on the planet, receives what they need to live. And of course, the majority of people in the world today immediately think that you want to take from them in order to have that. But that's not what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
When you do your own work and start living at this level of frequency, I'm absolutely not going to say this higher level of frequency, because it's not. It's just a different level of frequency where you have these inherent soul goals, values, morals, whatever.
Yeah.
Because their first argument is always, yeah, but that just means you're going to be lazy. Well, no, it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that things won't get done. There are still people who will do the things that need to be done, because that's what you do when you're at a certain frequency.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a ramble, but I hope
No, it was excellent. So if you could give one piece of advice to the followers and us as well, what would it be?
But I don't want to give a piece of advice. What I'd rather do is share something that it is a piece of advice, kind of, right? Something that really I want to invite people to live into. That all that is said to me very early on in the piece, and then had to teach me how to actually live into this. And that is this, and it's an absolute truth, You were born perfect and you haven't changed yet.
Oh, nice. I like that. I really like that.
Lean into that.
It reminds me of saying to my son when he wanted to get his first tattoo. And I said to him, I bore that body beautiful, and you can't mark it up until you're out of here.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, imagine a world where each and every one of us knows that we were born perfect, that we can't get it wrong, and that we haven't changed from being perfect, even though we think, because really it's all about, we think we've changed. That's the only thing going wrong here, is that we think we are less than what we were born to be.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah. Nice. I like that.
That's beautiful. I love that message. That is wonderful. Well, this hour is just like flown by. We could chat with you, I think, forever and ever and ever. We seem to just be able to do that.
You're a delight.
Yes,
you are.
Can you tell everybody where to find you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me on, my favorite place to live these days, besides on the mountain, is on Facebook. So you can always find me on Facebook. It's just my name, Anne Aleckson, and also my page, which is All That Is Anne, because that's about authenticity, right?
Right.
All that is Anne, it's one and the same. So, and also of course, on my website, which is annealeckson.com. And on the website, if you're interested in finding out a little bit about your purpose and about the frequency that you're here to be in the world, there's a little quiz that you can do on there. Nice. And we'll spit out a little report for you with some stuff that will help you to lean into this a little bit more. So
nice, wonderful. Yeah. And your book on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. It's on Amazon in the US and also Australia and every other country where they do it. So yeah, I mean, if you feel to read the book, love to hear from you if you do. And yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing space with us. It's such an honor. We really appreciate it. I look forward to reading your book and
your next book.
I was just going to say,
were you?
It was
nice. I like it.
Next book. And we'd love to have you back as a guest. So thank you so much. And it's been a delight.
It has.
It's absolutely been so much fun. Thank you so much, both of you. It's been, I mean, it's just gone like that, hasn't it? It was a minute ago you said hello for the first time. Thank you so much for having me. I'd be honored to come back at any time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And everybody else, follow along next week and we'll see you then.
You will.